there, Channing, it was, for me, coming off the injury he had, and obviously it took a couple years, but when that run he had, I was saying, hey, Paul George is looking like one of the, not the best player in the league, because also it's hard to get those types of numbers when you're playing with a Russell Westbrook.
Yeah.
And for me, and not taking anything from Russell, he just puts up so many stats. Those stats was unbelievable.
Yeah.
Well, it's official. Channing, sorry to cut you off, but Doc Rivers confirms the expected Paul George is officially a go. It's interesting what they're saying, though. There's no official minute restriction. They're saying it's, quote, visual. They're just going to watch George closely and adjust accordingly on his minutes. And as luck would have it for us here at the warm-up, we're joined by a very special guest, Andrew Greif of the LA Times. We appreciate you joining us here. We got to pick your brain because there's a lot going on with this Clippers team. Kawhi out, Paul George in. What exactly are they going to be looking at as they're watching and observing Paul George to determine if he needs to come out?
I think it's simply fatigue and conditioning because he's only had 2 practices, full contact practices to this point. Remember, his last game was April 23rd. He had 1 surgery on his shoulder in May, the other in June. He'd been doing some skeleton work, no contact at all, a little bit of 3-on-3 as things progressed in October and earlier this month. But it wasn't until last Saturday that he jumped into practice full time and was able to get hit. So I think it's going to see how kind of the wear and tear of the game goes along, the physicality, how he feels. And if Doc Rivers said if they see any sign of fatigue, they're yanking him. They just want to protect him. This is about, April, May, and June. As fun as tonight should be for the Clippers, they have to think about the long game.
Andrew, one area, if you look at the Clippers, they struggle a little bit from the three-point area. I just want to know, have you heard anything about Paul George shooting? I know the fatigue, we know he's there, but when you start talking about shoulder injury, has it affected his shot, even if he's shooting in the gym by himself?
From what we've seen, everything has looked smooth. I mean, I've watched, although we haven't seen him in practice very often, he's been out there warming up before every game, preseason and regular season up to this point, and everything looks smooth. The shots have gone in. Sometimes I've seen him make 9 or 10 in a row, so I don't sense any concern over that, but the Clippers' overall shooting certainly is concerning. I think it's the wide open shooting that has been of particular concern, especially last night in Houston. There is a sense that Paul can help. Again, the shoulders, they're brand new in a lot of ways, but his track record, especially last season, as almost turning into a sniper, gives them a lot of hope.
Hey, what's going on, man? This is Channing Frye. My biggest question is just the longevity of this team. Other than, Kawhi's rest time and Paul George is just getting back, what other things are you guys going to do with this veteran team so you guys are ready for that long playoff run?
I think you don't have to look much further than tonight. Patrick Beverley is resting tonight. It's a targeted rest day. That's what Doc Rivers just told us. I mean, he's technically out for a left calf injury. That was on the injury report. But Doc said this is one of the days that they've set aside well in advance that we're going to keep him out and keep him healthy. I think they're also looking at Lou Williams this year. His 15th season in the league. They want to make sure that he's healthy. He's had hamstrings in the last couple of years that have bothered him at times. So I would say Paul, Kawhi, Pat Beverley, and Lou Williams are 4 guys who they're really going to watch closely in the regular season because without those guys, the postseason is going to be really daunting if those guys aren't at full health.
Andrew, we thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, that was Andrew Greif of the LA Times covering the Los Angeles Clippers. And he brought up Lou Williams. I'm interested what you guys think about their bench mob. That's what I think they're calling themselves now. The Clippers have developed quite a crew that comes in and they can create a spark offensively.
I love them, and I think the bench mob even becomes more improved than what they were last year. I don't think they have the same type numbers because of Paul George and Kawhi, but when you bring in a Paul George, it takes the pressure off Lou Williams and also Montrezl Harrell. I think also a guy they're missing, Landry Shamet.
Yeah.
I mean, here's a guy you talk about they're not being able to make wide open shots. He can do that, and I love what he's doing on the defensive end. So when he's healthy, Paul George's healthy, this, Channing. When you have guys like Paul George and Kawhi Leonard that can draw double teams, the more multiple guys you can draw double teams, the guys get easier shots. Then you can just spin the basketball and get the shot you want. Right now, I think Lou Williams is struggling because he's having to press a little bit.
Yeah.
Kawhi's pressing. When the guys are not knocking down shots, the defense just closes in.
To me, these guys are winners. I think last year you looked, is this a rebuilding year with that team? Those guys proved that they can win and that they take pride in every single game. Their heart is what sticks out above their offensive game, and at times it is going to struggle, but they don't rely on that offensive end. They rely on the defensive end. And, having Paul George, who to me is one of my favorite players to watch, I've watched him since he's been in Indiana. I played against him. And to see his progression, to go from just a 3-and-D kind of guy to a killer three-point shooter to now almost talking MVP, playing at that super high echelon level. I've seen him get respect from some of the greats in this game. And to add him and Kawhi is only going to raise that bench up, because you take that bench that made the first round of the playoffs last year and you add a MVP or a finals MVP, they become even more dangerous.
Now, we know that we've got to temper our expectations, right? We're not expecting to see the MVP candidate Paul George right away. But what are you expecting to see right away?
I think Channing named all of it. We just seen his maturation throughout the years, and I know he's had the injury. You want to obviously him come back, and shoulders or something is a lot to do with him in shooting. So I want to see his shot and obviously being able to take that first bump. But I just look at, he has so much to his game, and people forget he's about 6'9". And I think when you add in a guy that's 6'9" that can do a lot of things, and especially a guy at 6'9" who's one of the better defenders, and then you have Kawhi Leonard, who's probably the best wing defender, they're going to beat teams when they're not shooting well. And then when those guys are clicking offensively with the Paul George, you have a guy who can play off the ball, and that's what I love, and play with the ball.
Yeah. To me, it's just looking, is he scared? Is he playing scared? And what's his intensity level? I think tonight I would love to see him be intense on the defensive end to kind of push himself that way. But he's going to score. He's going to get his shots up. There's three guys that are really going to take the whole load of that offense, and everyone else is just going to get it off the rim. But shoot your shots, PG. Take your time, but be aggressive and really push yourself.
Social media, the Clippers welcoming him back to the court. All right, his partner in crime, the duo, we won't see them play together tonight in Kawhi Leonard. But what will Paul George's game do to help Kawhi Leonard? Is it just that he's going to lighten the load and lessen the pressure, or is it because he's an all-around player, it's going to make the game easier?
I think it's going to make the game easier on all ends. And I think if it say it was me and Channing, I'm like, Channing, I'm a little tired of guarding LeBron. You go guard him for me. We had 12 fouls against LeBron James. Also, you want to be 1A. Right now, you have the matchup that's favorable to you. And looking at Kawhi and Paul George, they haven't played together. They're still unselfish superstars, in my opinion. Even though they get numbers, there's still some guys you say they're still unselfish, and they're able to score 30 without dominating every possession.
When they put the lineup of Lou Williams, Kawhi, and Paul George in there, how many teams have a defender that can guard Kawhi?
Right.
Maybe one or two. How many teams have a guy that can defend Kawhi and Paul George? Maybe one or two. And how many teams have a guy that can guard Kawhi, PG, and Lou Williams? One of them is going to get the scrub, and they're going to go off, right? It's one of them going to get the runt. And that is what I'm excited to see. Once they kind of gel and mature as a team, that third guy is going to go off. And, some nights they're going to get 20. Another night you're going to see PG or Kawhi get 40 and 50 points.
Okay, so we expect that we will see some sort of management situation in terms of minutes and games played, not just for Paul George, but also for Kawhi Leonard. We've already seen that. So do you anticipate that they will have many games that they are not playing together? Will they try to alternate the games they're taking off, or will you think they'll try to get them in as quickly as possible so they can get acclimated?
Well, I think they'll take their time, especially Paul George coming off these injuries. But and at one point, we all know you got to play together to get that rhythm. But I think they can get that done after January. But the one thing I love hearing from Andrew was they're even thinking about resting Lou Williams. I haven't heard that. Lou has been one of those guys that always stayed in shape, but I still like that they're talking about giving him some rest, because when Lou's at his best, Channing said it best, there's not a lot of people can guard Lou Williams.
No.
And Lou gets going, it's going to be interesting. One stat I do love about the Clippers, they were below average rebounding team last year.
Yeah.
They're in the top 2 or 3 right now on both ends, defense and offense, and they didn't really get bigger. They just have a lot of guys that want to go out there and do it.
All right.
I mean, Steve said it all. I got nothing to say. I'm just excited to watch this team. I like the way they play. They play with passion. They play the right way. And I think sometimes Kawhi does take a lot of the offensive load. Last night, I thought it got a little slow, got a little bogged down. And I think when you're playing with a guy like Paul